Welcome to DeFi by Design, where we talk all things blockchain and cryptocurrency while striving to educate, empower, and enrich.
It's your boy Andy, and welcome back to the DeFi Slate YouTube channel. Smash the like button on this video, that really helps us out, and sit back and enjoy the content. Thank you very much.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the DeFi by Design podcast. Excited today to talk with Rohit from Jedi Swap and what is going on in StarkNet. Right now, the Saudis are buying our coins. That's the meme. So having a laugh and enjoying the bear cycle while staying strong, building up. Excited, to learn about StarkNet. StarkNet's something that you guys are going to want to pay attention to, especially as we kind of get into the Q3 and Q4 of this year. It's going to be something that you're going to be hearing a lot more about. The combination of the ZK technology with StarkNet is going to be like the next kind of big narrative, I think, after the merge comes and goes. So yeah, excited today to talk with Rohit. Of course, here with Robbie as well. Robbie, how you holding up out there? What are you seeing out there? What's going on?
Yeah, can't complain. It is, kind of in the midst of build season, aka bear market. But that is paving the way for all these really creative opportunities, right? Which I'm particularly excited about. I think StarkNet is where a lot of action is happening right now on the developer side, on the DeFi side, NFTs, metaverse, the entire scope. And what Rohit and the team is building at Jedi Swap is super exciting because it links all of these applications together on a scalable network. And we'll see, kind of the competition between different layer twos start to erupt. And it looks like, Jedi Swap is on the forefront to really, pave the way for that and make the most of it. So I'll pass it over to Rohit and let him introduce himself and give us an intro to what the team is building over at Jedi Swap.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks, Rob. So I'm Rohit, building into Web3 since 2017. Started as a Web2 crypto company, and I think I really jumped into 100% Web3 in that permissionless, very ideal world at the start of 2020. And since then, I am trying to build a community of folks who believe Web3 is good for the world and want to basically really take it to the rest of the world. That community we call Mesh Finance. And from the Mesh Finance community, we are building Jedi Swap, which is an AMM on StarkNet. So we are a completely community-driven ecosystem. That itself is a very, very new experiment in the world of crypto. And at the same time, we are playing at the frontier of the blockchain scaling as well by building on validity rollups. Most of the people call them as ZK rollups. So really excited to be here.
Cheers, man. So why is StarkNet so important for Ethereum and the scaling push?
Yeah, so we also found this answer along our journey. So as a community, we first started building on Ethereum. We were building a yield aggregator on Ethereum. And what we realized was that if our vision is to take Web3 to the rest of the world, this is not the best way, because billions of people cannot pay tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars in gas fees. And the transaction has to be much more scalable. So in that journey, then we started building on Polygon and till then Polygon was just a proof of stake chain. So with that, we realized that here, the costs are cheaper, but at the same time, it's basically run by 100 nodes, and 100 nodes doesn't even mean 100 people. It basically one person can be running 10 nodes. So it could be just 10 people. And that's do we want to build Web3 depending on these 10 people? So as a result, we realized sidechains are not the answers. Then we landed up on the layer twos, started with Arbitrum. With Arbitrum, we felt like this was a great solution, and it seemed pretty perfect by that time. But that's when we started hearing about ZK rollup, and that's when Vitalik also wrote a post called Endgame. So we read that, and then we just started going deeper into ZK rollups, today we call them validity rollups. There is a technical difference, like why we should not call them ZK rollups. So when we did that research, then we realized that billions of people will not even come if the cost is 20 cents or 10 cents. They will come if it is like maybe less than 1 cent or even less. And ZK rollups or validity rollups were the most scalable solution from our perspective in a longer period horizon. So we just started building on that. Then we just digged down on ZK Sync and StarkNet, both of which were building on ZK rollups. We tried to differentiate how one is different than the other. And after our research, we basically decided to build on StarkNet because we felt that's the solution that will help us maximally to basically take DeFi or other Web3 applications to billions of people.
Yeah, there's definitely a clear difference between the side chains and the alternative layer ones when it comes to security, speed, especially compared to ZK rollups, where they kind of scale with even more usage effectively, which is really interesting as a concept. So is the StarkNet ecosystem going to be compatible with like Arbitrum and Optimism? Like, how do rollups are they able to communicate, transfers of funds like bridges or kind of like cross-chain or cross-rollup environment? Like, how do you see like the interoperability of Ethereum rollups coming to play?
Yeah, so I think in maybe next 2 years, we will see rollups will be so much composable with each other, because ultimately, like if you think from ZK rollup side, all they produce as output is a proof, and that proof can be verified mathematically. Like you do not need a lot of validators to basically prove if the proof is correct or not. So once you take it to that level, then you can write programs across different rollups. Like one rollup can read the proof of other rollups. So that's how we can achieve completely permissionless and very highly efficient composable systems between rollups.
Interesting. Yeah, because right now there's bridges between Optimism and Arbitrum and Boba and others, but yeah, I mean we're just now starting to see like the ZK environment come to light, which is it's been interesting.
Exactly, and like I think these bridges will be even better than the bridges we see today. So if you think about it today, I think we see 3 different kind of bridges. So the first is centralized bridges, where like you are acting as a centralized party and you are managing liquidity on 2 different blockchains. So if you ask to withdraw on Ethereum, you give funds to my Ethereum account, and then I give you fund on your blockchain B from my funds from blockchain B. So that requires like centralized mediaries. Then the second kind of bridges are which depends on liquidity. They are permissionless, but they depend on liquidity providers. So you can think about Hope protocol, something like that. They enable instant withdrawals or instant transfer from one chain to another chain, but they depend on liquidity a lot. And then the third kind of bridges are canonical bridges, like they are the native bridges, which generally these blockchains develop themselves. So like bridge.arbitrum.io will be that kind of a bridge. So here you are basically using the true capabilities of a layer 2. But in case of optimistic rollups, for an example, there is a large withdrawal time of 7 days. So these kind of issues can persist in these kind of bridges. So we think, at least I feel, at least in the ZK rollup ecosystem, we will see complete permissionless bridges, which doesn't require any centralized parties. And at the same time, they will be instantaneously fast as well, because that's what ZK, both sides of ZK rollups kind of promise. Like each side is ready to give you finality within like few minutes or maybe like a couple of hours. So that's the kind of finality you will get permissionlessly without the need of any liquidity providers. I think that's the next level of bridges we are going to see.
Yeah, and that enables speed and security at a greater scale of magnitude. for the current network of bridges.
Exactly.
Do you see, with that level of scalability, the evolution of StarkNet unfolding in a similar pattern to the Ethereum in terms of these layer ones starting to pop up, these different environments that have started to support, decentralized exchanges and then financial applications from there? Do you see StarkNet operating and kind of unfolding in a similar evolution?
So are you asking from the user's perspective, like the kind of applications that are getting built on Ethereum are the same kind of application getting built on
generally
StarkNet?
As a user,
is that what you are
as a
trying
developer, does it?
Okay.
Are you feeding the same market, or is there a demand for a different market over on StarkNet with the increased scalability, that opportunity there?
Yeah, so it's like it's definitely like you are not trying to replicate the same thing as you had on Ethereum, because that will be like going backwards. The whole point is achieve scalability. The whole point is create, like, if we are talking about bringing Web3 to the world, then we are not just talking about financial applications, for an example. We might need even social applications on chain. We might need like gaming on chain, for an example. So you need to bring like all these use cases on chain if you truly want to live in a permissionless world, in a more Web3 kind of world. So what StarkNet unlocks, it's basically unlocks unlimited computational power. So Ethereum then starts acting as the settlement layer. That's where, like, it's like if you use any kind of fintech app today, which lets you like quickly pay to some other person, and you are basically filling up your wallet by connecting it to your bank account. So that application will do faster payments. Like for an example, Visa is that case, and then Visa will settle all these transactions at the end of the day or at some frequency when it has all the transaction built up. So that's the same philosophy between layer 1 and layer 2. So now what happens is Ethereum starts acting as like the history which you cannot change. And meanwhile, you need high level computation. So now you can build games for the first time on chain where the game logic is running, because games require computation. Game requires some computation to run the logic it requires. So that logic can be on chain, and it can be proved that that logic was run honestly. Now that what that will unlock is like it will unlock a world where different games can be composable as well. Like think for an example about Minecraft. Like it's the beautiful example of a composable game, but all the pieces are still into the same game. What about if you create, like if you have seen like some of the creations of top Minecraft, like somebody has created Counter-Strike in Minecraft. So that itself can be a standalone game in this composable gaming universe. So that is something like which I think can be possible because of StarkNet. And similarly, I think social apps, DAO tooling is something that will be possible on StarkNet. So our thesis why we are building an AMM is not because AMM has been successful on Ethereum, but because we believe AMM will be much more successful in this kind of an ecosystem where we will see probably 10x more assets, because these all games will run their economies. So they will need DeFi applications. That's where like DeFi will plug into all these ecosystems. And that's basically like the game we are trying to play on. We are trying to basically play the AMM part from that perspective.
Yeah, the tokenized economy of each of those games looks more robust than it does on the governance token economy that is over on Ethereum. So what's your vision of the
exactly.
tokenized economy and the role that tokens play in this environment you describe with shared game realities and that universe, and the social element as well, and the applications that utilize tokens in their economies there?
Yeah, so if you really like dig around into the most successful games, this could include any platform. Like if you think about mobile, it could be Clash of Clans or any game Supercell makes, for an example. If we think about PC, it could be Age of Empires or any world building games, for that example. If you think about even FIFA, like there are assets getting created, like you are continuously earning points. So like most of us think about them as the gamification metrics. These are just numbers, but that's basically an economy. Like as long as someone is investing their time, they are creating an economy. And how do you value that economy? So it will be the first time, like I think it will enable that economy to really pop out in that financial way. It will help these gamers, these game platforms, these game developers to express what they are creating in a very meaningful way, in a very different way than what we see today. An example could be like, think about two different world building games. One is Age of Empire and maybe second is Clash of Clan. Maybe like, because like when we think about Web3, it's very community driven, and we will see there will be people who will be part of both the communities. And since both the games are composable, this community can create something else by basically merging, playing around between both the blocks of two different games. And in that, maybe like they can use a different currency, which is kind of linked to both the currencies of these individual games. So like that's the kind of play tokens can play. Now, why did you do that? Because then it aligns incentive. If you are making something on top of two base games, then if you are incentivizing the same people who are part of these communities, that could be done by tokens. And then it suddenly creates that network effect, which any games will need. So it will help you like get users very quickly. It will help you experiment very quickly. So I think these are the kind of unlocks that tokenization in gaming will help. And then this, I'm just talking about ERC20, like this thing can be 10x when you even think about the NFTs, the gaming assets, like the avatars or things like that.
Yeah. I feel like we have a pretty comprehensive understanding as to why StarkNet is going to be so powerful for all these different types of applications that you've explained now. Got into the tech a bit as well, which is just extremely powerful, as you're saying. Now, what I'm curious, and I think a lot of our listeners are, is why is Q3, Q4 exciting for StarkNet community and for DeFi on StarkNet? You know, what's the big, you know, events going on towards the latter half of this year?
So I guess we are just going into straight alpha here. So I think StarkNet community is something I have seen from my own eyes, like growing it. Like when we started building on StarkNet, we were third project probably. There was obviously Argent, there was Zigzag, and I do not remember anyone else building on StarkNet. There were obviously projects that were live on StarkX. So that point of time, like when we started writing 𝗫𝗀𝗀, for an example, there were like really no good resources available. So we saw like there were probably not more than 50 𝗫𝗀𝗀 devs at that point of time. And I'm talking about probably September last year or even before that. From there, today, we have probably 150 known products or known projects who are building on StarkNet. I'm sure there will be as many as unknown as well who will be in stealth today. And if you consider like devs, they have grown probably like in thousands today. Like I do not even have that number. So that growth has been very organic, first of all. Like because I've seen other blockchain ecosystems, many blockchain ecosystems spends a lot of capital. There is already a big support from investors. So that's why like people come in because there is a pull because of the money. So money becomes the core motivation, like where I'm getting the money, that's the chain I should build on. So here I saw people came very organically because they were curious, because they wanted to explore, they wanted to build new things. So that building has been going on for the last 12 months. And meanwhile, StarkNet was also upgrading. So there were like basic limitations. For an example, there was no capability in StarkNet just a month ago where you can deploy a new smart contract using a smart contract. Now, how does it impact? Like, so in an AMM, like anyone should be able to deploy a pool. Now that pool is deployed using a registry contract or a factory contract. So we were not able to build something like that. So that has been live just like last month. So now these kind of things suddenly unlocks 10x potential. And then it unlocks more capabilities, like you can build 10 different more kinds of applications. So now I think StarkNet has created the basic things required in a blockchain. I think the next step StarkNet has been going through is the bridging experience, which also has been live. They are taking it slow because the blockchain itself is very new. There can be state resets. So the timelines for that is now it looks like it will be decently live in production with some stable release by end of October, where it will remove all the limitations of TVL. So if you have been following how much capital has been going into StarkNet, it's been always up to the capacity. So when they like increase the capacity or the limit of the bridge, it suddenly gets filled up like within few hours. So we will going to see like a lot of capital infusion when that limit is listed. As a result, we will see all these projects we're building to launch around the same time. So the timeline could be like, I think fourth quarter is the more realistic timeline right now. Having said that, there is still chances that it might not be fourth quarter. I have high confidence interval, but it might change. So that will be the moment when all these new projects will be coming out. That's when like all the capital will be coming in, and probably like a lot of projects will be distributing rewards to all of their early supporters, all of their early contributors as well. So it's going to be exciting time around the fourth quarter.
How is it coordinating with the entire ecosystem and aligning those launches between, various projects of different teams and sizes?
Yeah, so for us, for an example, it matters a lot because we are an AMM. What matters to us is like all the projects should have their pool on Jedi Swap. So as a result, we basically try to reach out to all the teams. And how we are doing that is there is no team in Jedi Swap. So everything in Jedi Swap is done by the community. It's done by the independent contributors. So when you have such a system, like all these contributors are like real believers of the underlying tech. That's why they are spending their energy into Jedi Swap by being a contributor without having any financial contract or any kind of commitment as a return. So these are the same people who are also part of all these different projects, right? Because they are bullish on that ecosystem. So they want to stay on top of everything. As a result, like we have been able to basically make connection with all the StarkNet projects. We help projects building on StarkNet with visibility, like we invite people on podcast. We have a decent following. We have a very active community. I personally help any project in terms of guidance if they need any kind of help, like crypto incentives or maybe protocol design. We are also collaborating with multiple protocols from product design perspective, also from liquidity bootstrapping perspective. So like the philosophy is very simple: build together and basically grow the Web3 together with the help of the community. And community here means all the protocols, everyone building for Web3 for the true purpose.
Yeah. So the community is small, but it's like vibrant and it's very tight knit. It seems, and it seems like there's like a coordinated push here for the end of the year for token launches, for liquidity, just all sorts of different markets and lending and borrowing and yield farming opportunities. It kind of feels like the early beginnings of DeFi summer once again. So yeah, I mean, what are some of the projects that you're currently working with at Jedi Swap that you're most excited about, for the full launch?
We are working with multiple projects that include projects who are native to StarkNet, who basically the newer projects, and then there are some of the blue chip projects like the Generation 1 DeFi projects, for an example. So we are working both kind of projects. So on the newer projects, like we are working very closely with zkLand, zkPad, zkX. I think zkPad is Astrally now. Then there are gaming projects as well, like we are talking with Loot Realms, probably Dope Wars as well at some point of time. On the NFT side, like we have been talking with 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗵𝗵. And in the blue chip, like we have been talking to MakerDAO, Frex Finance, all these projects as well.
Nice. Have you heard of Realms for Adventures? It's like a Loot spinoff.
Yeah. That's why I mentioned like we are talking with Loot Realms as well.
Yeah, they're doing they've gone full StarkNet for their token claim now, and you can transfer over lords and all sorts of different stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting project for sure. Again, that kind of comes back to the applications available from NFTs, and GameFi and DeFi all together with StarkNet. So StarkNet is accessible right now via the Argent wallet, but not on MetaMask. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Why? Because in case of StarkNet, the account is a smart contract in itself. Like it's not an externally owned account like your Ethereum account. There are many benefits. Like that's a whole different conversation. Like what are the advantages? I can obviously talk about a few if you want. But as a result, MetaMask cannot support it natively because it's not designed in that way. So MetaMask recently announced another product called MetaMask Space that is basically going to be the StarkNet native wallet. And there is 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵 as well who have recently launched the StarkNet wallet.
So do you have, so when you own the contract, that's your wallet, is there a similar like private key kind of seed phrase mechanism, or how does the storing of your assets work?
Yeah, so it's a similar mechanism. You have a backup key. What it enables is like when your account itself is a contract, you can basically, it's like programmable wallet. You can set up multiple things. For an example, today's security is the biggest concern for any user coming into Web3. Like we all are maybe very tech savvy. We can handle private keys, public keys natively, but imagine like your grandmom or like people who are not that tech savvy. For them, it's just too much. So for them, like we have created these experiences of two-factor authorization, for an example. So these kind of things you cannot build in the wallets we had before. In smart contract wallets, you can inbuild these 2FA kind of things, which are at the same time permissionless. Like it's not like you are giving your custody of your funds to someone else. And that is something basically what it unlocks.
Interesting. Yeah, well, definitely we'll have to get that over to a more active wallet to really get that, to get a lot of users. So when they open the bridge to StarkNet, which is called StarkGate, are most of the users are bridging their assets on Argent Wallet then? Is that where the majority of the funds are being held?
So it's not held in Argent Wallet. Like it's still within your own custody. You only have the private key to move your transaction, but it is in a smart contract. For that smart contract, only you have access to that smart contract. But it can unlock like a multi-sig accounts as well. Like you can say like Robbie has one of my key and I have my key. My key is primary. If in any event I am not accessing my wallet, let's say for a year, in that case, Rob can access my wallet. So like you see where this goes to. Like you can, if you want to enable in unfortunate circumstances, for an example, you want to do inheritance. So that is something which is possible here. Similarly, you can say, like, I have two different devices. For the smaller transaction worth $1,000, this should be the key. But the transaction is higher than $10,000. I want both of these keys to say yes. So that is something you can build like natively.
StarkNet with the account as a contract itself enables business logic or game logic, as you described it before.
Exactly.
Opposed to like a MetaMask, which doesn't offer the ability for that logic. It's just a storage spot. Is that kind of an accurate picture of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And is there
and that's kind of a functionality of 𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗏. Sorry.
I was going to ask: is there external actors that could place business logic on your wallet contract, or is it only adaptable by yourself?
So
yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is adaptable. Like different people can create different kind of wallets. Like I think when we think about Web3 today, like it is difficult for us to really imagine because the only actions we do is swap tokens or like lend tokens, like these DeFi actions. But imagine like when this becomes your identity, like your whole identity is your wallet. Wouldn't you want a chance to move your identity and never lose your identity? Like these kind of things basically cannot happen today with MetaMask. So it basically unlocks all these kind of use cases. Like, is that what you were trying to look for, or I missed the Q?
Yeah, the separations and the new opportunities that are available when the
yeah. So you were asking about, can there be someone like some permission factors? Basically, I think is what you were trying to ask.
And I know Andy was jumping in for a question too. Andy, what were you going for?
Yeah, I was just saying that the smart contract functionality was a result of coding in Cairo as far as what the wallet structure looks like, which I think is obviously the answer.
I do not think it's a functionality of Cairo. Like even I think ZK Sync might have account abstractions when it will launch the ZK EVM. I think it could be a functionality of every blockchain. Even in case of Ethereum, for an example, you can create smart contracts. It's just the UX is going to be much more simpler on layer 2s because, for an example, account abstraction might require computation. It might require a low transaction cost and all these things, which is basically possible on layer 2s. I think that's the main difference here.
Got it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I guess my question is more on the permissionless nature of interacting with an account abstraction. And it sounds like anyone can really interact with any wallet account that's out there. They can set up logic to send one transaction if a certain amount is received or if that wallet performs on-chain activity. Yeah. So.
Oh wow, that's a whole different. That's a whole different world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So account abstraction is going to be really, really big.
We've chatted with the fellas at 𝗵𝗵𝗴𝗵 who are doing some smart contract. They're calling it automation, where it's triggers once set up, one trigger sets up another. Well, is that a similar framework as how these account abstractions are working? So I guess the difference I'm looking to dive into is like, is it multiple transactions for each interaction with the account, where that's the 𝗵𝗵𝗴𝗵 format, triggers after one another? Or can you set up multiple actions within the same transaction that occur as a result of some on-chain activity?
Yeah, you can do both. Basically, you can club multiple transactions in a single transaction as well. Like, let me give you an example. Let's say you have a salary account that is set up by your employer. Now that employer sends $10,000 every month into your account. Now that account is itself a programmable account. So maybe you can set up a program where you can define every time 10% of the salary, I just want to use JediSwap and buy ETH automatically. So now you do not have to worry. Like, it will just, your employer will send you the money. Your account, as soon as it gets the money, it will directly buy Ethereum on JediSwap. And basically all of this will be done instantaneously, like within one single transaction. Maybe you want not just Ethereum, you want to diversify 10% of your capital into 5 different assets. So you can club all those transactions as well together, and it can happen in a very single way. So like, it can open up a very, very different world, which will be even better. Like, these kind of applications you cannot even imagine in a Web2 world today.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to even imagine them on Ethereum or on a different alternative chain, because like, for that interaction to happen, I would have to set a limit order on 1inch or something for a price to be hit, or set some sort of like time-based thing. But what you're saying is that so you can basically have like what we now know in DeFi as like using a decentralized application like a Uniswap or a 1inch. You can basically take that functionality and import it into your wallet, which is a contract, still use the decentralized applications on StarkNet, but effectively you can create those transactions, or you can do those activities, which extends to games, to NFTs, to all sorts, basically like automatically, without having to kind of like set it on, on JediSwap or on these apps. Like, it's almost like we're taking away a layer of like work or of transactions and bringing it away from the applications, if you will, in Ethereum, and bringing it to like the wallet, which is just a contract. So basically, like a StarkNet wallet is like a super powered like smart contract that can effectively do like anything that you tell it to do, and it also stores your assets.
Exactly.
That sounds just right on point, Andy. And I'll throw another example out there. If I to build on Rohit's example of getting paid by a DAO, once goes and confirms once that wallet is paid by that DAO, let's say, rather than buying Ethereum right out on an exchange, what if I wanted to check the price of Ethereum? If it's under the moving average, I want to, go ahead and buy. So like having that check in there, rather than that being another transaction caused by getting paid by the DAO, and then that trigger setting off another trigger, and each of those triggers being transactions, we can club those triggers together into one transaction and scale within the same transaction for multiple checks or actions. Yeah.
Exactly.
And think about how that scales to like you were saying, Rohit, to gaming and other applications, identity and all of these things. It's like it becomes like an automated Web3 experience, if you will. Yes, that's a really interesting concept that I'm glad that we kind of touched on and worked through. Now, do you see some friction in kind of people understanding this or the experience of using a different type of wallet for the average MetaMask user, or even like a more experienced like yield farmer or such? How is the user experience going to like shape up just from the standpoint of actually interacting with these apps?
So I think user experience is just going to get better and better. I do not think we will have as many friction points as we have today to complete Web3 actions. I do not think people will have to rely on hardware wallets or anything like that. I think that's really going backwards. Like it just not capital efficient. It requires cost, it requires resources, and we as a humanity, like we are trying to optimize the use of resources. We are trying to be more efficient. So as a way, like I do not think hardware wallets, for an example, are going to be the biggest thing. I think software wallets are going to be the biggest thing. It's just we will need better UX in those. We will need all these better features or better security guarantees, which are going to be possible. And that's how we will see mainstream adoption. There might, I see a world where it could play out just like how mobile or any mobile adoption played out. Like people who were in their teenage years when the mobile in generally came out, I think they were the ones who were able to adopt it much quickly than the older generations who were not as close to the tech. It might still play out the same way, that people who are in, for an example, people who are in colleges today, maybe they will start their career by working in a DAO. Once you kind of experience that, and then you will go to work in a traditional organization, like you will not be able to survive. As a result, the next generation will be the quick adopters of all these concepts. So it might definitely play out from generation perspective. But having said that, UX will keep getting better regardless of like user experience.
Makes sense as the talent flows into blockchain applications and projects. As far as the missing gaps, for those who are listening who want to get involved, whether it's joining a community already or starting a community based on ideas that we've talked about, what are the gaps you see, and what's the most effective way to fill them when someone's approaching StarkNet?
So like I think community building is very different than product building. Like for community building is very, very philosophical. It requires very ideological alignment. Like first, someone needs to really understand what is a community. I think most people confuse community with users, or like as a marketing force, like people whom they are using as a marketing force. But community is very broad. It's very emotional. Community is something where two different humans can align on something, like they have a common vision or they have a common imagination. Some of those common vision or imagination could be small. Some of them can be really, really tight. It could be really strong. And that's what makes a community a stronger community and a bigger community versus a smaller community. To give you an example, like you watching a football match in a group of 5 of your friends, when you are doing that, all of you 5 have some common imagination that like we will all have fun when we are doing this activity, and that's why you are doing it. So that's community. Like that's a community of 5 people without having any financial goal or anything like that. So that's how first, like when you think about community, like that's how at least I think about community. And as a result, we have built our community on these principles. Like what this community means, this community is for people who first of all believe on fair and transparent systems, who believe in permissionless systems. So if I won't be able to part of JediSwap community if I myself truly not believe in it. So once you have all these people who believe in the same thing, then suddenly like you are moving things from a very ideological perspective, because you want to play with the ethos of the community. That's what is most important to us. And then it always plays out in the product as well, because that's when you are seeking product which also help these kind of ethos. Like the ethos are built into the product itself. And that's why like from JediSwap perspective, we believe in permissionlessness. And that's why we love AMM, because AMMs are the perfect example of permissionlessness.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So even in case of StarkNet, so I was just saying, even in case of StarkNet, the principle applies. When we are part of StarkNet ecosystem, why we are doing that is because we all believe like we can push the humanity forward with this technology, and that's the common part. That's why we all are part of StarkNet community.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I feel like StarkNet community is very aligned on the ethos of, I mean, ultimately like decentralization and what Ethereum stands for, and then where you were headed as well. So as we kind of wrap up here, what are we going to get excited about with JediSwap in the coming months? How can we get involved, and how can our community be a part?
So first I will answer how someone can involve and what we are most excited about. So JediSwap is a product. I think the most amazing thing we are doing it, how we are building that product. So there is no team in JediSwap. There is literally no hired person in JediSwap. Everything from development to design to marketing is done by the community. So when you try to do that, it creates like multiple outcomes. One, everyone who is becoming a contributor, they are mentally aligned. They are psychologically aligned. When they are aligned, or also they are working with the same kind of people, it generates happiness within yourself, because you are first of all working with the like-minded people, and you are working for the goal which you believe in. And because it's a fair and transparent system, you are getting rewarded by default by doing that. And so it's very easy to basically become a contributor or help JediSwap. Just join our Discord, introduce yourself. It's the community's job to get you the right direction. So community will figure out how to get you to the right direction. They will help you getting built. So the whole philosophy is learn and build together. So that's what we are most excited about. Like now this system creates a lot of problems as well. So as a result, we are solving these coordination issues. We are building new innovative processes. And when we are building these processes, we also know what kind of toolings these kind of processes will require. So we are kind of also playing at the frontier of DAO. So we will be creating a lot of DAO tooling. Many DAOs have come to us and asked us our help, like how they can implement the system. So with time, we are going to create framework which can be used by other DAOs, other communities as well. From product perspective, we are going live on mainnet probably in a week or two. It will be a small launch because there is still small liquidity on StarkNet because of the TVL limitations. But that's the biggest thing we are excited about from launch perspective. We will be one of the first DeFi protocol on mainnet on StarkNet. It is going to be completely permissionless. And then we are already working on V2, which will come again around the same time as all the protocols will get live on StarkNet, which will be Q4.
Exciting stuff, man. Thank you for coming on, Rohit. I'm excited to see you grow, see you in Paris, StarkNet CC. It's going to be fun. And again, thanks for hopping on and sharing some alpha.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andy, and thanks a lot, Rob. Really had fun having this conversation, and see you in Paris. I'm really excited about
Great chat,
StarkNet CC.
Cheers.